Imagine a mysterious object stealthily approaching our planet, silent and unseen. By the time our telescopes finally spotted it, the best window for detailed observation had just closed. Officials scrambled to explain it away, trying to classify it as an ordinary comet. The too many signs indicated that it was very different from any comet we'd ever discovered. One coincidence after another kept happening. This interstellar visitor from another solar system, is it a purely natural celestial body, or is it a large intelligent vessel with a purpose? Welcome to 10. Decryption. Hello everyone, I'm Air. In this episode, with new scientific data, we'll continue to investigate this interstellar visitor, Oumuamua. Welcome back everyone, it's 10 o'clock. Hello, I'm Eric. Welcome to 10. Decryption. Right, when you saw this topic, first of all, thank you for clicking on the video, because I'm sure that many other mystery channels have already talked this topic to death. But, well, I'm just so scatterbrained. It turns out I'd actually prepared the content for this episode a long time ago. But I must have been too busy, because I completely put it aside and forgot all about it. I've been on holiday recently, and while I was organising some files, I found it and thought, oh, I'd already prepared this episode, why did I forget to make it? But by now, other channels have covered it extensively, talking it to death, so I originally thought I'd just scrap it and not bother. But then, recently, there have been some some rather significant scientific discoveries that are worth discussing, so I thought, I'll take my original research, add in the new information, and make an episode for you. Because I'm sure there are still some people who don't know about this episode's topic, the interstellar object from another solar system called Oumuamua. So what exactly is it? Once again, 10. Decryption will provide you with some information so you can decide for yourself, is this event really so mysterious? Or is it just a simple, natural, celestial phenomenon? Okay, so how did the story of Oumuamua begin? It started with a NASA-funded project called the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, or ATLAS for short. On the 1st of July 2025, this system discovered an object that had suddenly appeared in the sky. The main purpose of the ATLAS system is to monitor potentially dangerous asteroids and comets. It's an early warning system for objects that might impact the Earth. The ATLAS system is mainly comprised of 4 telescopes distributed in different locations around the globe. 2 of them are in Hawaii, 1 is in Chile, and the other is in South Africa. The whole incident happened on the 1st of July 2025. The ATLAS telescope, located in Chile, detected a fast-moving object. And the captured footage, although, well, there's actually very little data, because they only managed to capture a few milliseconds of footage. Just imagine, as you're watching this video, for example, every second is made up of 25 photos, or 25 frames combined. But for this discovery, this 3-eye atlas, they only captured maybe 3 or 4 frames within a single second, just a few milliseconds of footage, and this image is from very far away, and it's also very blurry. But they detected that this object was travelling at a speed of 58 kilometers per second. Its orbit showed a highly hyperbolic curve. This indicated that its trajectory was definitely not from within our solar system. You know, the path of the 8 planets. So it was clearly a suspicious object from another solar system. So after the staff discovered this object, they reported it to what's called the Minor Planet Center. Then, on the next day, the 2nd of July, astronomers started to get the data from this image and began follow-up observation work. They studied the origin of this celestial body and named it 3-eye Atlas. Okay, so what does 3-eye mean? 3-eye indicates that this is the 3rd interstellar object we've discovered that has come from another solar system. An atlas is like with typhoons. The entity that discovers it gets to name it. Since it was discovered by the Atlas system, they simply named it Atlas. It's as simple as that. Okay, so here's the interesting part. The 3i proves it's the third one. So what were the first and second? Well, the first one, 1i, was called Oumuamua. If you've been following the news, it was taught about to death a while back. There was this very long, cigar-shaped, enormous celestial body that came from another solar system. At the time, it was even hailed as a spaceship, that kind of object. In the end, nothing was found. And the second one, 2i, the second interstellar object, is called 2i Borisov. This Borisov is also an interstellar object that actually originated from another solar system. The strange thing about it is that in an environment where it shouldn't be able to emit gas, it released effects similar to a comet's nucleus. And it was also, we'll talk about a certain person in a moment, described as an intelligent alien object. Right, so after astronomers named it, the European Space Agency, the ESA, and other agencies later joined in to track it. For now, it's been confirmed that this 3i Atlas has a diameter of about 10 to 20 kilometers. Its perihelion, the point where it's closest to the Sun, is set to occur on October the 29th or 30th, 2025. The distance will be about 1.36 astronomical units, which is roughly 203 million kilometers. Now, most astronomers believe that this is just an ancient comet. However, at Harvard University, there's a very famous astronomer named Avi Loeb. This Avi Loeb, on July the 12th, published a paper. This paper pointed out that 3i Atlas has many uncanny coincidences, many suspicious aspects. When you add everything up, it feels like this is definitely not a purely natural celestial body. It has so many coincidences that it's considered to be, well, an intelligent or even an artificial celestial body. Now, we just mentioned 1i and 2i. That's 1i Oumuamua and 2i Borisov. Both of these were once pushed to be a very hot topic, discussed as objects from another world. And this actually all stems from papers published by Avi Loeb. But when I started researching the points Avi Loeb made, I also felt that with so many coincidences, it's just too much of a coincidence. So much so that I feel what he's saying is not just spouting nonsense. So we can explore the points that Avi Loeb has raised together. So what are these suspicious aspects? Well, the first point concerns the behaviour of 3i Atlas's trajectory as it approaches planetary orbits. The first point of evidence is its trajectory behaviour as it approaches planetary orbits. The orbit of 3i Atlas brings it to a position between Venus, Mars and Jupiter. The probability of a trajectory following a similar path is only 0.005%. That's a 1 in 20,000 chance. Supporters believe this kind of precise planetary approach could only be achieved through some intentional method. And this kind of intentional behaviour is possible. It's using these planets to decelerate or accelerate or to conduct some kind of observation. And the second point of evidence is the alignment of its retrograde orbit with the ecliptic plane. The orbit of this 3i Atlas, its deviation from our Earth's ecliptic plane is only 0.2%. So what does that mean? It's like you've drawn a very long straight line in space. You're holding a paper aeroplane and you throw it forward from very far away. If that plane hits the straight line you've set and the paper plane follows that line all the way with a deviation of only 0.2%, well, that's extremely difficult to achieve. Moreover, this 3i/Atlas on this ecliptic, although it only has a 0.2% deviation, it's in a retrograde state. This is extremely rare behaviour among natural comets. Supporters also explain this as a possible deliberate design or an intelligent method, allowing it to use a retrograde path with such a low deviation to evade our Earth's observation or to hide its origin. And the third point of evidence is its perihelion. This 3-eye atlas on around October the 29th or 30th, 2025 will reach its perihelion, which is the position closest to the Sun. That position is 1.4 astronomical units. And at that time it will be exactly, completely behind the Sun, meaning from Earth we will have absolutely no way to observe it. And it's such a coincidence, the most perfect time for it to hide. So it's also considered to be an intelligent object, to choose this time to appear at its perihelion, and at the same time this prevents us from being able to observe it in any way. And the fourth point of evidence is that this 3-eye atlas, there's some preliminary data that shows its orbit may have some very weak non-gravitational effects. This means it doesn't need to rely on the gravity of these planets to influence its motion. This implies it might have some kind of jet propulsion or some form of autonomous control. Alright, and the fifth point, this links to some very interesting things, which is the timing of its approach to Earth. It's been calculated, it's predicted that astronomers and scientists predict that the orbit of this 3-eye atlas will be closest to Earth from late November to early December 2025, at a distance of about 1 astronomical unit. And it just so happens that the discovery of 3-eye atlas was in July 2025. Then, in January 2025, a UFO expert named Jeremy Corbell, this expert, in January 2025, said on a public program, he described that the government would spread a lie about an alien spacecraft approaching Earth, and that this was going to out them. This Jeremy Corbell described this event as Whisper Day, also known as Whisper Day, meaning a whisper events. On the program, he showed some private communications, some messages that said the government would spread a conspiracy theory, calling on the public that there would be an imminent contact event, and this contact event would have a specific time. Coincidentally, the appearance of this 3-eye atlas also has a very close, that is, it has a time when it approaches Earth. So these two things just happen to link up like that. So in just a short span of half a year, this Jeremy Corbell implied there would be a time when the government or some public announcement would say that an alien object would be approaching Earth. These coincidental timings just link up together. Alright, based on all these coincidences, I feel that this whole thing is quite dramatic. I mean, imagine this. In January 2025, a UFO expert comes out and presents a conspiracy theory saying the government might spread a big lie, that an alien object is going to approach the Earth. Then, half a year later, the Atlas system suddenly discovers an interstellar object from another solar system, and the behaviour of this interstellar object is just so coincidental. With a probability of just 0.005%, it manages to get close to Venus, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn in our solar system. And then its orbit has only a 0.2 degree deviation from our ecliptic plane, and its perihelion just happens to be completely obscured by the sun's light. And at the same time, I forgot to mention one thing. Before the time 3-eye atlas was discovered, it was also constantly being blocked by the sun's light. That's why the Atlas system couldn't see it. But by the time this interstellar object, 3-eye/Atlas, was discovered, we on Earth had already missed the best opportunity to send any instruments to probe, detect or study it. So with all these coincidences combined, well, I feel that, the point that Avi Loeb made regarding this particular argument is not completely incorrect. And these coincidences, many paranormal events are just like that, so coincidental. So this time, Avi Loeb brings up a new argument, and it's quite shocking. This time, in Avi Loeb's new argument, the main focus is on studying the luminosity of this 3-eye atlas. He feels this luminosity is in a very abnormal state, and this time he has some data to share. So on July 21st, Avi Loeb obtained the latest image of 3-eye atlas taken by the Hubble Space Telescope, and in it he discovered that the front of 3-eye atlas faces the sun's light, but he found no typical cometary tail on it. This light was initially interpreted as light emitted from dust that was evaporating as it faced the sun. But Avi Loeb's analysis of its surface brightness profile, and he shows a diagram, shows that the slope of the projected power is -3. This means the radial power slope of the three-dimensional emission profile is -4. Now this slope, although I'm not a scientist and I don't really know what this means, I'm just relaying his data, this slope shows that it's more extended and more unusual than comets typically found in the solar system. And a member of Avi Loeb's team, named Eric Kittel, further believes that this spectral image is more consistent with some kind of dust outflow, meaning the halo is illuminated by a central light source, which is a model for it. Because if you compare it to sunlight reflection, the data in this chart couldn't possibly appear this way. So they believe this latest data can't explain the observed luminosity and area of 3I Atlas through solar reflection. So in this latest theory, they are also discussing the actual size of 3I Atlas. Using this latest data, they believe that if 3I Atlas relies on sunlight reflection, its volume, its diameter I should say, would need to be about 20 kilometers wide to produce this luminosity. But they generally believe that the resources for interstellar rocks are very limited. It would take about 50,000 years for such an object to appear. So their team calculated that for 3I Atlas to be this bright, the required luminosity is 10 gigawatts. That's equivalent to the energy of 10 nuclear reactors. This profile shows a core-dominated light source, so if it's self-luminous, then 3I Atlas can be much smaller. This would bypass a common counter-argument that the resources for interstellar rocks are limited, so it's impossible for such a large object to appear every 50,000 years. If we use this 10 gigawatt theory to describe a self-luminous theory, then the diameter of 3I Atlas can be reduced to less than 100 meters. This would be similar in size to the previous 1I Oumuamua and 2I Borisov, which would make sense. And in the spectral analysis of the latest images, it can be confirmed once again that there are no features of cometary gas. So that hazy thing around 3I Atlas is probably an effect caused by the movement of this interstellar object. It's not any of that so-called fragmentation, nor does it have a tail, nor is there any gas release. So it rules out some very typical cometary effects. So in this latest discovery, Avi Loeb would think that since the luminosity of 3I Atlas is definitely not caused by solar reflection. Oh, and I forgot to mention one point, the luminosity of 3I Atlas is 200 times greater than that of 2I Borisov. So he describes that there's a high chance, why can 3I Atlas be so bright? It's because it's not relying on reflected light. This 3I Atlas is itself a self-luminous object. These lights are man-made. These are some that don't rely on external resources. It's based on some principles of its own light emission. So why is this matter making the news again? I think it's very special. Therefore, this new theory... Actually, I think they're all very juicy. Have you ever heard of a celestial body that emits its own light? All celestial bodies appear due to the reflection of the sun, and this chart, although we are not scientists, and we are all peanut eaters, so this picture might be a bit, for us, what to do is so boring. However, for some scientific data, it might be something that can be discovered in a lot of ways. All those coincidences combined, actually, there's a rather interesting conspiracy theory behind it all. It's about an explanation of something called the Dark Forest. Explanation of the Dark Forest. It came from a very famous podcast I watched, a show called Joe Rogan. He invited some UFO experts to discuss it. He has discussed 3I Altars. He mentioned a theory called the Dark Forest of the Universe. That's why we often discuss, in particular, for example, like Zhao Shane. He often says, you guys often talk about UFOs and aliens, etc. Why do they never show up? Why do you all sound so familiar? They said they saw him and that they had contact with him. Why can't he just walk out with his head held high? This is an explanation of the Dark Forest. There has been a description of what this phenomenon is. And the origin of this Dark Forest explanation, it originated from his use in rebuttal, a theory called the waste rice paradox. The main theme of this waste-rice paradox is about questioning why, in such a vast universe, we have never found a single one. Any sign of extraterrestrial intelligent civilization? This is the waste-rice paradox. The waste-rice paradox was coined by a physicist. It's called Enrico. The idea was proposed by show a name in 1950. He said this universe is so ancient, there are so many planets, but why have we never seen it? Any evidence of extraterrestrial civilizations? Therefore, this waste-rice paradox has already been. Our world has been running for decades. It's been said for almost 70 years. Then came the theory of the dark forest in the universe. This concept can be traced back to 1993. An astronomer and a science fiction writer. His name is David Brin. When he summarised the argument of the waste-rice paradox, his theory of the dark forest is described as follows. He said, assuming this universe is like a forest that's been described as completely dark, and every intelligent civilization, they are all hidden hunters, and these hunters might be everywhere in this dark forest. Within it, every one of these hidden hunters, they avoid having their whereabouts discovered, because every civilization needs to survive. So they have to protect their own resources from each other. Or, in order to survive, they need to obtain the resources of others. And so every one of these alien intelligent civilizations hides in this dark forest. They use some very powerful methods to avoid exposing their location, and also to gradually approach other hunters and to obtain the resources they need to allow their civilization to continue to sustain. Just like that. This is the dark forest theory. And on the Joe Rogan show, they also combined this VI Atlas and the dark forest theory in their discussion. So how do they apply it? Well, he says this VI Atlas might be one of the hidden hunters in this dark forest. When it arrived, before our Earth discovered it, it used the sun's light to conceal itself, so that we couldn't discover it all the home. And by the time we did discover it, Earth had lost the best opportunity to scout and detect it. And when it reached a point close to our solar system, it could cleverly use a 1 in 20,000 or 0.005% probability to approach our Venus, Mars, Jupiter. Perhaps it needed to decelerate within the solar system. Perhaps it needed to scout, to detect us. And when it reached its perihelion, the time we had the best chance to detect it, it hid behind the sun again. The sun's light also completely covered it, and we were completely unable to conduct any further reconnaissance on it. And Jeremy Corbell, he said he received an internal message that the government is going to release a plan, that there will be an extraterrestrial spacecraft approaching our Earth. And the time this VI Atlas is closest to us is from late November to early December of 2025. And when it's closest to us, combined with all these factors, 3 arguments have emerged. First is that it's actually nothing. It's a natural celestial body that will just pass through our solar system and then leave our solar system to go to other solar systems. That's the first theory. The second theory is that it's heading towards our Earth to crash directly into it. And then the Earth will be reset. Just like in the age of the dinosaurs, so it flies bam, crashes into it. The Earth is reset again. And the third theory is that it's decelerating to land on Earth. It's just like in a Chinese science fiction novel, The Three-Body Problem, what's described in the second book, is what happens after this dark forest hypothesis, which is an alien, a hidden hunter, finally arrives on Earth. Then it'll annihilate us and take all of our resources. From that point on, humanity on Earth is finished. Do you believe what Avi Loeb is saying? We should keep an open mind. Will we experience what's described in the second book of the Three-Body Problem? That the hidden hunter finally arrives at our home. Do you believe it? Feel free to leave a comment and discuss it with me. Alright, that's all for this episode. I'll see you next time.